Alright, fine. Since you guys wanted a video about Mother's Basement and his retarded video about Goblin Slayer, I guess I can spare a couple of minutes and just go over it. I don't see why we can't at this point since it's technically part 3 of this fucking universe.
This video discusses sexual violence in media in a way that requires showing certain explicit scenes. While I'm going to try to keep that to a minimum and put warnings in front of the worst of it, and I'll provide plenty of eye bleach in the form of cute animals between all of that, be aware that some of what you're about to see may be disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Much like the community that you foster, you really want to keep everything very straight-laced by not including something that has already been seen by the masses. Something that needs to be shown to people so that way it can give you context to the story. But instead you decided to give these shitty warning labels, the same one that your corporate overlords over at Crunchyroll have given you.
That's not the way that I wanted to lead into a discussion of Goblin Slayer. I'm pretty sure that content warning alone is going to invalidate my opinion for at least some of the show's biggest fans.
Some of the show's biggest fans. I think even ones that don't like this show will probably see this video and think that you're a little off the rails.
First impressions are everything, and I wish that I could be making a different one. I also wish that Goblin Slayer didn't need to have a content warning in front of it on Crunchyroll. I wish that I could be making a video about fun, creative D&D kills, or the psychology of an obsessive anti-hero protagonist, or the potential for a resurgence of dark fantasy that this show, along with Overlord and Re:Zero, is facilitating. And yet, here we are.
You're right, here we are talking about Goblin Slayer weeks after the first episode premiered, so that way you can cash in on a little bit more of that controversy that you're trying to stir. That's what I don't understand about this entire Goblin Slayer thing, is I made a video responding to Pedantic Romantic. I mean, I don't have to, hit really low cues and say that it's like somebody. I'm not afraid to call out people that I've already made videos on. But the thing is that you guys are going on this noble crusade to make sure that people don't look at this show in a very positive light. You're going out of your way to make this look as though it's not anywhere close to a semblance of a good show, which I don't understand.
Because first impressions are everything, and for a lot of people, myself included, Goblin Slayer left an awful one.
No, I think most of the people that saw it liked it. I think that you're just being a little pretentious.
On watching the first episode, I said the series was repugnant and edgy and felt like it was written by a 14-year-old, and I regret that tweet. Having read the manga and light novel and seen a few more episodes, I think it's unfair to the work as a whole and to the series writer.
No, that's not what happened. What happened was people were telling you to go read the manga and the source material because you'd made a very awful tweet. You had made a super hot take without ever realizing how retarded that really was. That's how Twitter works when you get ratioed. You said, well, Goblin Slayer is, well, and truly repugnant. Didn't think I'd see a show out-edge Magical Girl's sight, but this takes the cake. Feels like it was written by a 14-year-old. And then you went on to make some more statements generalizing your audience and the people in your comments, to then going on about how you're a straight white male and all this other stuff, but don't worry, at least you had some help down there. I just think that when you're going about this entire Goblin Slayer video, it's like you're trying to force some kind of narrative that doesn't exist, much like the other 2 videos in this somehow new series that I've made.
Goblin Slayer is a fun, pulpy, schlocky adventure about a plate-armored psycho bending the rules of the RPG world he lives in to massacre trash mobs in the most imaginative, efficient, and often entertaining ways possible. It's a show that highlights the absurd creative potential of tabletop role-playing and marries it to the gleeful murder lust of games like Doom and Hitman.
You know, games that people actually play, games that are actually very well received from the people that play them. I know this may be hard for you to believe, but Doom 2016 sold very well. It sold numerous amounts of copies, to say the very least.
Overall, it's not repugnant, but its first episode is, and that largely comes down to one awful, ill-conceived, poorly justified, and exploitative rape scene that I think is as bad as, if not worse than, the infamously awful scene from the end of Sword Art's Fairy Dance arc.
Alright, we get it. You hate Sword Art Online, but that doesn't mean that this is the same thing. I don't know what it is about anime YouTubers and thinking that somehow a scene where nobody gets raped in Sword Art Online is somehow the same thing as someone actually getting raped and Goblin Slayer is. Like, how do you draw parallels between the two? All right, so just bear with me here, but in the clip that you showed from Sword Art Online, it looks like there's not been any clothes being ripped off. It doesn't show that anything is happening to Asuna as a whole, except that this guy is tormenting her. And may I remind you that this is in a virtual reality game. Nothing is actually happening to her body in real life. This is all a role-playing game. Now, in Goblin Slayer, those characters are actually there. They are the ones actually experiencing these things, and they actually show those things in a little less detail than the source material does, but it shows those things happening because I don't even know why I'm explaining this to you. You just don't fucking get it because you're an idiot.
Today, I'm going to lay out the problems with that scene's concept and execution and dig into the issues with the anime adaptation that created them. And because I know that not everyone agrees that the scene is a problem in the first place, I'm also going to try to explain why I think it's detrimental to the series overall.
How is it a detriment to the series if it is something that was shown to show you how brutal and savage that the goblins are? See, when you bring up these arguments, do you know what you're saying? Or are you just trying to use big words because you think that it'll somehow strengthen that argument of yours?
So in case you don't know how Goblin Slayer starts, the series opens with a young priestess signing up to become an adventurer and joining a party of other newbies on a goblin killing quest as a healer. They go into the goblin's lair woefully unprepared and are quickly overwhelmed and then die, except for the priestess, who makes a swift retreat and is rescued by the titular hero Goblin Slayer at the last second, and the fighter, who is brutally beaten and raped. Because in this universe, that's how goblins reproduce. This is meant to show that goblins are dangerous and make us hate them as much as our heroes do, or at least understand why they need to be killed so badly.
Alright, well, with a few mishaps here and there, I think you got the basic summary of what Goblin Slayer is, or at least from the first episode is, and I think that we can go ahead and continue from here with a little bit of knowledge that we do have. I mean, pretty much everyone that's seen this video or seen yours has at least got exposure to the first episode in some fashion.
And it arguably does that, but the way it goes about doing it is cheap and exploitative.
What?
The scene makes us as an audience feel upset, but it doesn't do so by hurting a character that it's made us care about, or cutting off a potentially interesting and fun storyline before it can begin, or doing any of the other things that well-written stories do to earn their readers' reactions.
Now, there's a problem here, Mother's Basement, and I don't think you've quite realized it yet. You've read the manga, and you've read the light novel that this is based off of, so you already know the backstory to them, so that kind of makes this point null and void. If you know the backstory to this character, or at least that she has a story and some kind of legacy that she's a fighter because of her father, and that she wants to be the world's best, then at least you can get a little bit of what this character is about, and then when she's raped, you know to feel bad for her.
All it does is take something from the real world that is already inherently upsetting and put it in front of us, saying, look at this, feel bad.
Oh my god. I knew that you were stupid, but just, what's the next part?
And it doesn't even do a good job of that, but I'm getting ahead of myself.
Wait, so now the rape has to be good rape to you? I don't understand your logic. If rape is inherently bad, which it is, then why are you saying that it has to show you a good kind of rape? Why does the rape have to be good in your eyes for it to actually be valid, or to make you hate the goblins even more? Do you know how retarded and daft that is? This is... what?
That is, to put it nicely, really fucking lazy.
Much like the videos that you and I both make, except that my videos contain a little bit more self-awareness.
It's the writing equivalent of a jump scare, or of focusing the camera on a puddle of gore, a cheap tactic for getting a totally unearned reaction out of your audience. And while using shortcuts to move people early in a story when they're not inherently invested isn't a bad thing on its own, specifically using sexual violence, which...
Okay, so now you're gonna use puppies, so that way we don't have to look at the real part of Goblin Slayer because you don't like it? Jeez, you are falling way off of the deep end. I don't even know if we can call it that at this point.
Is both a hot button issue and a source of trauma for hundreds of thousands of people, is at best crass and tasteless. Because, frankly, there are plenty of other horrible real-world things that could elicit the same reaction without that baggage.
Ah, yes, show me something worse so that way I can actually feel bad about it. Let's forget about all the other shows that you watched and enjoyed, like Akame ga Kill, Berserk, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, where a child gets raped by another man. Like, do you realize that you're really wanting Goblin Slayer to show you something not as violent as rape, but you want it to show you rape in the good way, so that way you can actually feel invested for the characters? I don't know how far you've read into JoJo, since apparently you tell people to skip parts, but you should really go ahead and do some research on some basic shows that show rape and glorify it, and especially the ones that are a little bit more explicit. And trust me, there's a lot of those out there. I know how much you really want to hate Goblin Slayer because it showed you the bad stuff, but that's like getting pissed off at hentai, or ero anime as they call it in Japan. I mean, let's just be real what they actually call it, but let's just call it hentai because we're all plebs here. In hentai, they show a lot worse stuff, especially in shows like Euphoria. And if you haven't seen Euphoria, then I just don't know what else you're going to really think of, because that show has heaps of rape.
If the goblins were to, say, shove their knives in a box of puppies or stick their dicks in a box of puppies, we'd be equally disgusted with them, equally inclined to hate them.
No, I think you're missing the point. The rape is to show us how bad the goblins are. If they killed a box of puppies and we never got to see the puppies, then we would never know. Now, if we actually got to see the gore, then yeah, that's something different.
And it would have just as much of an impact on the rest of the story as killing off and traumatizing a pack of nameless prop characters.
Technically, everybody in Goblin Slayer is nameless. Name one character, and if you can't call them Priestess, you can't call him Goblin Slayer, because that's what he is. They don't have names, so technically they're all nameless, you fucking idiot.
If you're going to devote significant time to sexual assault in a story, especially right at the start,
oh my god, we're sexually assaulting the anime characters again. Do like a group of you guys get together and just say, wow, can I outdo how fucking stupid you are? No, wait, here. Hold this for me. Hold this beer. I think I can just outdo you a little bit more. You guys realize that these are cartoons on a screen, drawings made by other people, and you're getting this upset about one scene from a first episode? It's a good thing you guys didn't read the manga. You see, I was going to give props to the anime man because he at least had the know-how to get in contact with the Goblin Slayer creator, and he interviewed him for a video. That video didn't get very many views, but at least he enjoyed it enough to get the creator and talk about it. But, I had to take away those points because he was being a whiny bitch on Twitter talking about how no one watched the video. Way to put down your fan base there, bud.
you need to make sure that it's an essential component of that story, that it changes your characters, alters the future course of events, or at least lets you say something meaningful that you otherwise couldn't.
So you're saying that the priestess isn't more careful about the other characters as she lives in this universe? I'm pretty sure it's a couple of episodes, it might be an episode or two after it, it's all running together for me, where a group of adventurers goes out to slay goblins and she wants to go protect them and save them. They come back unscathed, thankfully, but she wanted to go save them because of her past experience of just porcelain adventurers going out and not being prepared enough. Are you fucking retarded?
Psycho-Pass offers an example of how this can be done right, as its first episode also involves sexual violence. Specifically, the episode's villain kidnaps a woman named Shika Shimizu and starts doing every horrible thing he's ever imagined doing to her because the Sybil system has flagged him as a latent criminal and he figures his life is over anyway, so he may as well enjoy it.
Okay, but go ahead and get to the next part of your video.
The twist is, when our heroes kill him and rescue Chica, she's so traumatized and stressed out from what she's just been through that the Sybil system picks up on her mental instability and deems her a latent criminal as well. Meaning, right after they save her, the officers have to kill or at least arrest her.
I see what you're trying to get at here, that this scene of rape is better than the other one because we don't get to see this rape happening, except that I don't think that there was any rape in this scene. And having watched the first episode just now so that way I could debunk this stupid ass video of yours, I can clearly tell you with all confidence that she does not get raped. She does get beaten quite a lot, and she does get tortured, but she doesn't get raped. That's the difference between Psycho-Pass and Goblin Slayer. And if you're trying to make correlations between the two, then I think you're going for a little bit of a stretch.
This whole plotline is meant to highlight the horrifying flaws in the Sybil system, how it encourages criminal activity and makes no effort to distinguish between unstable criminals and traumatized victims. And that message is amplified by showing Chica going through one of the worst kinds of trauma imaginable, making us entirely sympathetic to her plight.
Except that we don't see the scenes of her actually getting tortured. We hear screams and we see the cutaway, but we only see what happens before and after, but we never see the during. Now, the same could be said for Goblin Slayer, but at this point, I think we already knew what was happening when they showed a little bit more context than what we got in Psycho-Pass.
Threatening a box of puppies or even subjecting Chica to a lesser crime would change the outcome and meaning of the story. So I think that using sexual assault as a plot point there is justified in a way that Goblin Slayer's use of it simply isn't. At least, not in the anime.
That's all we're discussing, Mother's Basement. We're only discussing the anime, the thing that you have a problem with. I don't know if you really have caught on to how stupid you sound yet, but you're only talking about the anime. That's all we've been talking about for the past 16 minutes. We've been talking about how you just don't like the anime because it doesn't do this good rape scene perfectly. It needs to have a better rape. That's pretty much what this video boils down to, and I'm about over it already.
But both the light novel and the manga turn the faceless party of adventurers who accompany Priestess into actual, characters. In the light novel, before each of them dies, the narration shifts to their perspective, giving us a bit of insight into who they are and how they think. The mage is annoyed by Priestess's constant worrying, for instance, while the fighter is in love with the warrior and finds herself heartbroken to watch him die. In the manga, each of them is given a one-page flashback where we learn that the warrior was a poor farm boy who picked up some big dreams listening to tales from other adventurers. The mage was a spellcasting prodigy destined for great things. And the fighter was the daughter of a martial arts master who wanted to honor her father's legacy by saving people.
Right now, since you have all of that right there, what is your qualm with this exactly? Because you've just single-handedly laid out everything that destroys your argument from 16 minutes when I started this video all the way up to now. Because if you're having an issue with these are faceless characters, but you've read the manga and you've read the light novel and you know the stories of them, how does this make this worse for you? Because now the scenes make sense. And to a lot of people, it will not make sense. But that's because anime as a whole is supposed to be an advertisement for you to go read the source material. That's why some shows don't ever get adapted. Some manga series never come to be an anime because they'd rather you read the actual art. They'd rather you just read the manga, actually read them, not skip parts.
It's as thin as characterization gets, but it's still characterization. It tells us who these characters are and who they could have been. In a different world with less rapey goblins, these characters could have been proper heroes in their own right. The warrior could have been Dragon Quest's Erdrick. But in this bleak world, that story is cut short before it could ever begin.
Hence the genre dark fantasy. I'm glad that we got to this point, Jeff.
This small bit of character building adds a tragic element that's not there in the anime and makes this scene upsetting for reasons other than just because the goblins did an inherently bad thing in front of us. Kumo Kagyu, the series author, does something to earn that reaction, and it's better than the nothing the anime gives us.
I really don't know how much longer I can deal with this, so I'm just gonna see what this next part presents me.
Now, this level of characterization doesn't really justify how gratuitous the anime or manga are, but it's perfectly appropriate for the way the novel handles the scene. Which leads us to the bigger problem with the anime, the way that it sexualizes this violence.
Yep, now apparently we're sexualizing the rape. Apparently the rape in that scene was just so sexy for us, guys. I can't. I'm not going to give you a full video. If I can't even give the anime man a full video and he's stupid, I'm definitely not giving you the time of day. And you spent God knows how long and you didn't even make the video with any good faith whatsoever. Look, I'm perfectly fine with Goblin Slayer not being everyone's cup of tea. People don't like it for various reasons, and I understand that. But if you're going out of your way, like Mother's Basement, to make a video not explaining any of your points validly and saying, well, this scene doesn't do it right, but this other anime, yeah, that one does the rape perfectly, even though that there's no rape in any of the anime that he's ever brought up, then how in the world does this strengthen his argument? Everyone is so worried about one show and how it portrays a certain scene that not everybody is going to agree with. I don't understand why we all just either can watch a show or just can't watch it. I'm sure this is a great litmus test for a lot of people to find out how smart they really are. Mother's Basement wanted to spurg out on Twitter and say how bad that this show was when it first came out. Now he's kind of changed his mind a little bit, but he still says that you're an idiot if you still watch it. Here, you know what? Let me just bring that video back. Can I bring it back, that video?
For the rest of you out there, the hardcore Goblin Slayer fans who just want to see the community around the series grow, want it to be recognized for its better qualities, and want it to make a lot of money so that more of the series gets adapted and more shows like it get made, please, don't let defending this one scene be the hill that you die on.
And why would that be, Mother's Basement?
Instead of acting like nothing's wrong with it or like people are wrong to be upset about it, acknowledge that it's a bad first episode, or at least a potentially offensive one, and try to draw people's attention to the parts of the series that you think they'll actually like.
But there isn't anything wrong with it, and if it is potentially offensive to some people, I can't speak for everybody. I can't speak for the people that watch my videos and find me to be an absolute idiot. I mean, I probably could. I mean, they probably think that anyways, but all I'm saying is, I can't generalize everything for everybody, and I can't tell them what's offensive to them. If they don't like something, I can't tell them to watch it or don't watch it. That's stupid, and you're stupid for thinking that. And if no one can get past the first episode, that's not my problem, that's more like theirs. All I'm saying is enjoy what you want to enjoy, and if people don't like the first episode, just because I find it to be a good first episode, doesn't mean that everybody else in the mother has to. All I'm saying is, I made this video because I was getting really good responses from people in the community tab, where I posted a thing about how I didn't want to do anything about Goblin Slayer because I just thought it was a dead topic at this point. I really don't want to do any more Goblin Slayer videos, but even when I was on Discord or on Twitter, people were still sending me this video. So I figured I might as well just do it as kind of like a last hurrah, you know, to talk shit about Mother's Basement for just a little while longer. Now, obviously, there's more in that video, and of course I'll always leave the original video linked in the description, but I just don't know how much more of that retardation I can actually take. If you guys really want to just cringe over something, or, I don't know, have a good laugh, then most certainly go to that video. I mean, always be outspoken, and if there's any more videos that you want to suggest that aren't stupid like this one, then please put them in my inbox, and I'll consider it.